Thanks for tuning in for this week's live Q&A, and the question today is the Flow Hive fake? Now, we launched it to the world in 2015 after my father and I spent a decade developing the Flow Hive because we wanted a simple way to gently harvest honey from the hive without having to have a whole extraction room, the centrifuge and the decapping line and the hot knives and all of the paraphernalia and mess that it takes to harvest honey in the conventional way. So we spent a decade working it out, testing it around the world, and then we took it to the market in 2015. And at that time it caused such a stir. We had so many people saying, is the Flow Hive fake? This cannot be real, because it was such a different way to harvest honey than conventional. And interestingly enough, now after we've got 100 and something thousand flow hives in all corners of the globe, we still get the question, hang on, this can't be real, it's fake. So what we're going to do today is explore that. You let us know, you tell us whether you think it's fake or not. And what we're going to do is harvest a little bit of honey to show you that it can come out of the hive, and we're also going to take apart some hives and show you the inner workings. So stay tuned for that. We're also going to use our new super lifter invention. So if you've got questions, put it in the comments below and we'll get to answering those. But the theme of today is the Flow Hive fake? Now, this hive here does have a little bit of honey. We're in our winter now. We're expecting spring around the corner. So what we might do is just harvest a bit of honey from this hive, make some space for the spring, which is only a few weeks away here as far as the bees are concerned in our area. Now, we're in a subtropical region, so we get this season as far as Apis mellifera, the European honeybee, is concerned, that doesn't have a real winter. Now, all I'm doing here is I'm turning a key, right? And channels are forming inside the comb. That's quite easy to turn today, actually. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's not. Doing it in segments makes it easier. Now, what's happening is channels have formed inside the comb by every cell dividing in half and forming these zigzagging pathways down into the trough in the bottom and out. Now, you can see that honey right there. Now, is this fake? Well, maybe we've just got a big honey container inside the hive and we put this key in and all of a sudden the honey's coming out. Chime in if you have a flow hive, let us know whether it's fake or not. But there we go, beautiful honey coming straight out of the hive. Ah, that is the paper bark, beautiful. It's so nice to be able to taste so easily the different flavours that come in throughout the seasons, and it's been one of the amazing sort of side benefits of the Flow Hive. Obviously, easy harvesting is amazing, but one thing we didn't expect was to be able to isolate all the flavours as the bees fill up different frames with different flower nectar, producing different flavours of honey. So while you might get this kind of auburn coloured honey that's got that beautiful multi-tones of the paper bark here, as the spring comes in, they'll start filling the wild quince here with those kind of lollishop extreme bursts of flavour, and then later on in the season you'll get something else flowering and something else, and you get this checkerboarding effect of different flavours. And I really recommend isolating them so that you can enjoy all the different flavours of the seasons and bring that back to the table. And it's amazing what stories really pop up when you start to explore honey flavours with your guests and with your friends and with your neighbours. Any questions coming in? We will be taking apart the hive, looking at the inner workings as well to show you a bit more about the Flow Hive, see if we can prove to you that it's not fake. Now, if you have a look down here at this hive, you'll see the bees are in the window. This is a nice example of the bees at work. You've got capped honey underneath the bees' feet here. You've got an uncapped section here showing they are a bit hungry at the moment because it is their winter, and they are taking away some honey there, but beautiful capped honey for most of the frame there. So the windows into the hive give you this real view of what's going on and give you a good idea of when it's time to harvest and when it's not. Okay, I'm going to taste a little bit more of that honey because I can't help it. It's so delicious. And we're just going to go about our beekeeping business while the honey's draining out by itself, which is the whole idea of the invention, right? Instead of putting in that manual labour of taking all the frames out, brushing all the bees off, taking all those frames to your processing shed, then setting up your centrifuge, decapping line, buckets, sieves. If you've done any of that type of beekeeping, you know what it's about. And it's a good idea, if you are going to walk away from the hive, to make sure you cover up your jar so that if the bees are a bit hungry like they are at the moment, they don't pile into that jar. Now, I'm actually going to cut this because it's better if it's not so big. So this is a wax wrap, right? And it's a nice thing to use in your kitchen to wrap up your kids' sandwiches, so you're not using one-use single plastic. So we use it to wrap around the jar, but you can use any kind of kitchen wrap you like, of course. And that makes it really quite easy. In this case, I'm just going to cut it into a square like that. And when I wrap it around the jar, I'm just going to make sure I pinch it underneath the tube at the back so that any naughty beesies don't go jumping in the jar while we're doing beekeeping down the road. Okay, any questions coming in? Let us know what's on your mind about bees, beekeeping, Flow Hives, our new superlifter invention. Chime in. Also let us know whereabouts in the world you are, whether you've got a beehive, what type it is, whether you've got our superlifter. Let us know what you think of that as well. Okay, so any questions coming in, Trace?
Yeah, Brandon wants to know, Cedar, how can I get the bees into the hive?
So starting in beekeeping, first of all, you've built your hive, you put it all together. Now, if you just leave it out in your yard, it's very unlikely the bees are going to go into there. If you have your hive near a whole bunch of other hives and it's springtime, then you might just find a swarm will move in, but it's very unlikely. So generally how you get started in beekeeping is you get a small little mini hive called a nucleus off a beekeeper or a bee breeder, and you situate that in your yard where you want your hive. On a nice warm sunny day like this, you get in your bee suit, you get out your smoker, and you transfer them into the bottom box, look after them, and they'll grow. When they have built out all of their wax frames in the bottom box here, then you can go ahead and put the super on if you've got a season ahead of you for the bees to collect a lot of nectar and store honey in the flow frames. There's other ways to get started. There is buying a package, which is basically an artificial swarm where a beekeeper has shaken a whole bunch of bees into a cage. They'll send that in the mail and you will tip that into your hive. It'll usually have a little queen cage, which I've got one in my pocket here, with a queen in it, and in there will be some escort bees to keep her fed while she's in transit, and that'll go in the hive. The bees will chew away the candy block. She'll be released into the hive and your bees can start that way from what's called a package. Then the swarm catching, which is more adventurous, and there's also taking a split, which is a great way to get started, where you simply take some of the frames out of one hive, put them to the bottom of yours. If they've got bee eggs, then it is likely they'll raise a queen by themselves, or you can introduce a queen, and there you have a hive split, and your hive will start from that split which you've taken from another hive. In springtime, you can often help a beekeeper by taking some of the frames out, alleviating some space in their hive, and also getting your hive started. So lots of options to get started in beekeeping. That honey's just pouring out. It's a beautiful thing. Let's just have another look at it before we go and start pulling apart hives. So we've already got a nice amount of honey for your table. The reason why we're harvesting into a nice big jar like this is so that we can walk away and let it do its thing. You can of course harvest into nice little jars or tiny little jars to give away at weddings and things. It's a real fun experience for people to enjoy harvesting honey in this new way. And although we've put our invention, this flow frame technology we've invented into the hive, it's kind of strange. You almost get this more natural way of harvesting where you're just watching only gravity bring it out of the hive and into the jar, and it hasn't touched any machinery, it hasn't been spun through the air. It's actually more likely to really maintain the floral essences and the flavour profiles that the bees have collected from the flowers, and that's actually been proven by a university here in Australia that harvesting honey in this way retains those floral notes more so than harvesting honey conventionally. So many benefits to our what is a simple invention. Okay, let's cover that back up, remembering to pinch it under the tube. It's very easy to do. There you go, and that'll stop those bees getting into the jar. While we're going to grab our super lifter, we'll get our smoker going. We might even pull out some flow frames to have a look at them as well before we start pulling apart the hive. So this is our caddy too, useful toolbox just to keep everything together. What I might do is grab our caddy. We've got a smoker up there already actually. Our super lifter's up there, and we'll come back to this hive later. Any more questions coming in?
Yes, Eda, this is great. I just have to read Marcus's on Facebook, and Marcus is saying, definitely not a fake. I have 2 flow hives. I get a full frame of honey every week and have the ability to leave plenty of honey for the bees. So easy to use, and the honey is perfect straight out of the hive.
Excellent. But you could be an AI agent, so it's really hard
True,
to know
Marcus.
these days, right? And that's the other new one. Although in the beginning we got this is fake, it can't be real, you're faking it. Now we get this interesting space where they're going, oh, this is all AI produced. And I have to say, if we had have been AI producing a decade ago, then we probably wouldn't be in beekeeping because that'd be very much ahead of the curve. So you can dial back through 10 years of live Q&A, and we do that because we want to look after our customers, because we want to help people get started in beekeeping, and we're really passionate about it. So our live streams are a great place to come if you want to ask questions a week, get support with your Flow Hive, or you can phone up here. You often get Trace's voice on the phone. She'll be helping you out. She's the one reading out the questions today, and whether it be about hive equipment, whether it be about the bees or whatever it is, we are here to help, and we are extremely dedicated to that. And we also have an online course at thebeekeeper.org which can take you from square one, no knowledge at all, right, to a really deep knowledge in beekeeping with experts from all over the world that have made high quality training content. So have a look at thebeekeeper.org, it's free to try, and also an amazing fundraiser for the bees. And we're very excited about all the projects we support and the habitat we support for bees and all things that need habitat desperately. Okay, so let's have a look and see what's going on in this hive. This hive is actually what we call a double brood. So we've got another brood box down below here, and then we have our super on top, or our flow frames on top. Now around here I find it's best just to do a single brood. We've got this more so for demonstration purposes, but we find you end up with a whole box of honey, not really any extra brood by doing a double brood in this area. In the colder climates, people do really appreciate double broods, or a brood and an ideal size for the flow super. So local knowledge is good, but flow hives do allow you to run your hive in quite a different way, because you can store honey in jars on the shelf rather than boxes stacked to harvest in batch at the end of the season. So there's quite a savings there when you look at it, because you don't need to store and maintain all of those extra boxes. Okay, let us know whether you'd like us to pull out a flow frame and show you the inner workings of the frame, or whether we want to get straight into the brood nest. Either way, we will light a smoker. Let us know which one you'd like and we will chime in.
Cedar, can you collect wax? Often, well, this is a popular question we get actually. Can you get wax out of a flow hive?
Yes, any beehive you can collect wax from, and Trace, reading out the questions, loves to put an extra little ideal box or another box dedicated to comb collection and wax collection. She loves to bring that in, share with the team. So it's something you can easily do by adding another box, or under the roof here, it's a great spot to actually allow the bees to build some wax comb. Now, it does get a bit messy up there, lifting the roof off. You've got a whole lot of comb that they've naturally built up there. So you might like to put like a glass baking dish over the hole in the inner cover, which is there. So you're taking out that inner cover, a hole like that. The bees will come up, and if you quarantine them to a smaller area with an upside down glass baking dish, you can watch them build comb right under the roof here. Or you can let them build a whole roof full if you want to. And you can harvest that honeycomb, and naturally you get the byproduct of a lot of wax when you crush that comb or chew on that comb and keep the wax for candle making. Okay, lighting a smoker. Now, there's lots of different ways to light a smoker. This one's already packed full of fuel, which is not the usual way we start, so I'm going to take that out. And you need to start with a very loose packing of fuel. Now, it looks like that was potentially going earlier, but you need it quite loose like that. And one of these does help, but you can just use any old lighter. But this will speed it up a little bit. What you want to see is really good fire like that. Now, if you're in a fire-prone area, we aren't here. Do be mindful, check restrictions, and put it down on top of a garbage bin lid like that when it's time to put it down, just to limit the chance of embers. Wear your gloves if you're new to beekeeping. You want to see a good amount of fire before you start adding any more. You can smoke your hands like this if you're going gloveless, but I'd really recommend wearing your gloves if you're new to beekeeping, because that will mean you'll get less stings. And as you're beginning in beekeeping, you might not be aware of how the bees are behaving and when they're likely to sting or not. A little tip here with the smoker is, after a while, this area here, which stops any flames coming out, can get choked up. So simple little scratch like that and you're good again.
Great seeds, and lots of people tuning in, they do want you to get into that flow frame, so.
Okay, let's do it then. So I'm going to add some smoke to the hive, which will have a calming effect. Now, you want the smoker really going, so give it a few good puffs, get some nice cool smoke coming out. And people have their different methods. Some people just like to waft it in front of the entrance. I like to make sure it goes in just by putting the nozzle right in the entrance. 3 good puffs, that's all you need. Wait a minute and the bees will change into hopefully a nice calm mood. On a nice warm sunny day like this, then the bees will be a lot more friendly than they are if it's grey or rainy. So that's something to be in mind, to keep in mind as well. Be in mind. I've got bees in my mind.
Hey, well, someone did just say, hey, do bees really have knees? The bees' knees?
Bees' knees. Well, I don't think they have any kneecaps, but they certainly do have knee joints.
Oh!
So they're like any other insect. And yeah, let us know whether you got a flow hive and whether you think it's the bees' knees or not. Okay. Now, to inspect these flow frames, I'm going to show you a few tips. So first of all, you're removing your gabled roof. Now, this is just a good time before you open the hive, or even before you're standing in front of it, if you're new to beekeeping, is protecting yourself from stings. Some beehives do have a temperament, depending on their genetics, of being quite territorial. So, and some are really quite calm, just like other animals, but they're sort of existing as a superorganism together, if you like. So if you do want to change the genetics, you then, making sure they're all zipped up, Velcro's down. If you do want to change the genetics, then you need to take out the queen and replace it with one with genetics that are nice and calm from a queen breeder. So we're putting our chisel end under, we're lifting up the inner cover. There won't be any queen on there because we have our queen excluder down here. Actually, it's up here, and you probably don't need one if you've got a double brood like this, because it's very unlikely the queen's going to bother laying right up here. And some queens won't lay in flow frames anyway, so you can experiment with no excluder, but that's more advanced because you need to check every now and then, make sure your queen isn't going to lay in the flow frames. So to get one of these frames out, the first one's always the hardest, just like conventional frames. You've got 3 lifting points. You've got here, you've got underneath the flow frame there, which don't tend to need that often, but sometimes they're really waxed up and everything helps. Then you've got with the J under the end bars like that. So there it is, easily coming up. Now what I'm going to do is stick the chisel end on here. We've got a small recess that should allow you to get your hive tool under like that. Levering it up, now you can grab it and just slowly, first one is where you want to be gentle, you don't want to roll any bees. Now this frame, if you dial back a few live streams, we harvested half of it. And the other half still has honey. So that's pretty cool. So this is a good show and tell, because what you're seeing is capped honey there, where the bees have reduced the water content. They've connected all the flow frame parts together with their wax to form the cells, and now they have put their wax capping on. Now it's a hungry time, so you can see they're undecapped their corners and use that for their own purposes. And this side we harvested, which you can see they've recycled all the wax and they've joined all the flow frame parts together. Now there's gaps between the parts, so when they move they don't catch the bees' knees, and that way if you are harvesting before the frame's ready and the capping isn't on, then the wax bridges break and the parts aren't jamming together to catch the bees' knees, if you like. So this is a good one to look at how it works. I will shake the bees off, and I'm going to need a flow key. If we could get a flow key, that would be fantastic, because that's what we need to actuate the frame. You can see right down the cells, give us a thumbs up if you can see the wax and the way they put more and more wax on. So although we've got a synthetic substrate here, in the end your honey is stored in beeswax, because the bees just start coating everything in wax, which is pretty cool. And after about 5 to 9 years of use, people are finding it's a good idea to blast that wax off with a pressure washer, let them dry and start again. Now if I just insert the key just a little way here, say that far, you'll just see part of the frame move. Now let's stand in the full sun so you get a better look. That's it. And so we're going to see channels forming in this section. And this is a bit tricky because it's long, but let's see if we can do it. Okay, so notice it makes a different sound when it's empty like that. Notice how we have channels here now and hexagons there. So now you can see how the honey would easily flow down into the trough and out. And that is as simple as the invention actually is. Each cell line splits in half, allowing the honey to flow down and out into your jars. And when you're done harvesting, you then put the key in the top slot. Now watching, we'll do this in a nice slower controlled way. Can you see those hexagons there forming as I turn the key? Look at that, now we've got hexagons again. And the bees are away, joining up all the little gaps and covering the parts in wax, putting their nectar in. The whole process starts again. And what was a real win is they actually recycle the capping. So the capping will be left on top. They will tear it all down and use it on the frame again. So there's a lovely efficiency pickup here where the bees can just use their wax again. Any more questions?
Great, so there's lots of questions coming in, and Beck's tuning in from Toowoomba, and she's just wondering, she had a thriving hive but it was really cranky, so requeened it to get a better temperament, but now they're getting even more cranky and she gets stung every time. And also saying that smoking them seems to stir them up, not calm them down. Have you got any tips for her?
Oh, really cranky hives can be no fun. It depends a little bit on yourself and who's around as well, whether you decide you need to change those genetics and have a nice, calm, gentle, easy hive to do your inspections and to be around. Now, you've tried to requeen it and it sounds like it's failed. It's a bit unfortunate, but there is quite a high failure rate when you requeen hives. So although you've done all the right things, you've taken the queen away, you've waited a day, you've introduced a new queen in a little cage with its delay tactics, which we were talking about earlier, and they've chewed the little candy block away. I've lost that little show and tell piece already. And once they've chewed the candy block away, the queen is released into the hive, and hopefully they've gotten used to her pheromones and they won't kill her as an intruder. But it doesn't always work. So for you may have to try again. And hopefully you'll get the new genetics next time. Now, you will have to wait a month or so before all of the genetics swap over and all of the old guard bees die, because those guard bees will be living on, and the short life of a bee is only 4 to 6 weeks, so you're waiting for that time to pass before the old genetics that might be more aggressive, more territorial, are going to die out. So I'm not sure how long it's been, but let us know. Perhaps you just need to wait a little longer, or perhaps you need to introduce a new queen and try again. Now, smoking them does tend to wind them up momentarily. So if you're really having trouble with aggression, then use a lot of smoke and wait a good couple of minutes before touching the hive. So you blow a lot of smoke in, and when you do have a really aggressive hive, don't be shy, just use a lot of smoke. It's going to be easier for you and the bees if there's not that aggression going on. So you'd be blowing a lot of smoke into the hive and continuing to use it throughout your brood inspection. And that delay between the initial smoke and pulling apart the hive will also increase the likelihood of them being calm. But genetics are genetics, and if you've got really high aggression like that, then you may not be able to get them calm with the smoker, as you're finding. And if it's all feeling a bit hard, then get some help from an experienced beekeeper to help you requeen again. Let us know how you go.
Great. See, Brooklyn wants to know, what's the best place to place a hive, and what are the biggest factors in deciding where to put your hive?
Okay, so putting your hive in your yard will have, if you're a backyard beekeeper, you often have different priorities than a commercial beekeeper. So all the books will say, you know, face it towards, so get morning sun coming in the entrance, get them going in the morning, and so on. Now, while that might affect honey yield, for you as a backyard beekeeper, that extra 5% may not be as important as making sure people aren't getting stung in your yard. So one of the major factors, placing your hive in the yard, probably the first factor, is make sure there's a flight path in front where people aren't usually walking. You don't want your guests getting some bees in their hair as they're approaching, you know, accidentally, or walking through this area in front of the hive. So allow a good several meters in front where the bees can get up and away. So that's probably the first thing to consider for backyard beekeeping. The next one is shade or sun. Now, if you've got a choice between full shade or full sun, always go full sun. Bees are amazing air conditioners and they will cool their hive as they need. And the extra sun will help with pathogens such as chalk brood. So one of the recipes, if you've got chalk brood, is put your hive into the sun. You may as well start it in the sun in the first place. Having said that, if you have a position in your yard to get afternoon shade in the summer, but otherwise sunny, that would be the ideal position for bees. But full sun over full shade if you've got a choice of one or the other. Pets is another thing to look out for. Some people just let their pets learn. Obviously, bees will sting them on the nose. If they're putting their nose in the beehive, they'll learn pretty quickly. Other people like to fence off their hive from their pets so they don't have that experience. And there's all sorts of other considerations like mowing. If you don't have to mow right in front of the hive, that's a bit easier because that's a certain, a big loud, noisy, smelly mower right in the entrance will wind up some hives. Some hives get very annoyed at that, others don't. So that's a factor. For instance, you could put a hive on a concrete paved area like this and you never have to mow sort of right in front of it or underneath it. That's another consideration. Any more questions?
Yeah, so just wondering, like, the main difference between traditional beekeeping and flow hive beekeeping.
Okay, so our flow hive is what's called a Langstroth beehive, which means it's in stackable boxes, and we've used the two main sizes in the world, which is an 8-frame Lang and a 10-frame Langstroth. So those hive sizes, we more or less match most boxes you'll find out there, and what we've done is we've invented our flow hive invention, which exists in this top box here, which is the area where you're putting for the bees to store excess honey so you can harvest some, and in our case you're bypassing the need for a whole extraction room in your house with the centrifuge, the decapping knives, the benches, the buckets, sieves, all of the paraphernalia, all of the mess, and it's built right into your hive here. So that is the main difference, is your extraction room is built right into the hive for easy, gentle harvesting in this new way where you can sit around with your family and enjoy the beautiful spoils of the honey flowing out of your hive in this new way. When I say new, been in the world now for over a decade, and we've got flow hives in all corners of the globe. So big community, let us know where you are in the world, chime in, and also let us know what the honey tastes like in your area. Other differences, we've gone and put these windows, so you've got a cross section of the frame. That was a brand new thing in beekeeping. Now that's really useful because you can start to see the bees filling those cells. Now you can't see it now, the bees are a bit hungry, they've actually removed honey from the extremities, which is typical. So you know now's not a great time to harvest because the bees are taking honey away from the edges. Now if you are seeing the honey building in here and capping down there, then it's a useful image to get a great idea of what's going on in your hive and know when it's time to harvest or not. And the side windows are useful as well because you can see right in and see them capping off the cells from the side view. Then we've come along and put a whole lot more wingdings here. You've got a pest management tray down the bottom, which helps for managing varroa, it helps for managing hive beetle, and also a useful tea leaf reading to see perhaps chalk brood dropping or anything like that. And you can see the capping off brood cells, showing there's a whole lot of a new run of baby bees chewing their way out of their cells and so on. So it's a useful management tray down there. Got adjustable legs on the corners, which helps you level your hive. We've got levels built into the side, which is great if you're doing naturally drawn comb. Also getting your honey harvesting angle right here for you with our Flow Hive 2. And we've also got the ant guards down the bottom, which are an optional extra. We are not using them right now, but if the ants were annoying us, we could make sure we're filling these up with some grease or oil and cutting the grass away. So there's an ant barrier. We've got nice brass fixtures as well for these covers, and a gabled roof, which is an extra layer of protection right above the inner cover here. You know, beehives usually just have not much between the roof and the hive, but of course if you add a nice gabled roof like this, you're limiting the amount of heat in summer that's going to go into your hive. So that's not only an aesthetic thing which looks beautiful in your garden, it's also limiting the amount of heat that's punching through the top of your beehive. What else have we got? Chime in, let us know what you like about your Flow Hive. There's also other added extras like entrance reducers, which can also be used as an entrance closure. We've got the weather guard, which is like a little awning for your hive on the front as well, if you get a lot of rain or snow. And another thing about the gabled roof is it allows a great spot to put extra insulation in those really cold climates, where you can put some styrofoam box or a pillow or something up there to add a whole lot extra insulation, which one place it's not argued whether you should insulate in those really cold snowy areas is under the roof. So whether you wrap the hive as well is up to you. Some people say definitely not, some people say it's good too, but under the roof everyone agrees, insulate that. So it's a great extra cavity for you there to add some more insulation if you are in an area that gets long, cold, snowy winters.
Great. So someone tuning in from Patagonia asking about getting hives there, and probably the best thing would be contact customer support on that one.
Oh, excellent.
And, yeah,
Patagonia.
Yeah, and how, and Scott also, see, last week we were doing it and you were showing people the little medium or ideal box. And Scott's in the UK, and just wondering, of course, will we have them there? I'm not sure if we will, Scott, but other beekeeping companies may have them there for you. But you never know, Flow Hive might get the ideal boxes over there, but yeah, they were the ones from last week.
So super easy too. If you grab our brood box and you grab a circular saw or table saw, you can cut it down to the size you want. And the leftover bit you can use it as what's called an eek, which is useful in the cold climates as well. So you're turning a single brood box into an ideal and an eek just by a saw cut all the way around.
Oh, great idea. And so would they have to go and buy different brood frames?
Yes, you'll be buying the shorter brood frames to match. I wouldn't bother cutting them down. You can get them at most beekeeping supply places. So in the countries where we have it available, we've got the ideal box with the ideal size frames as well. Now I'm putting this back in. The last one is the harder one to get back in, so let's just give you a tip on this, and then we're going to use the super lifter and open up this hive. So here we go. We are actually going to put it in this side first. And the reason why we're doing that is we're maintaining this gap here. If you let it jump behind, it's a bit annoying. So you put it in part way like that, and you roll the frame down, and it's only the last one you have to do this, and we're keeping it pushed against this space. So see how there, it's maintaining the space. And that way, as you go down, it doesn't jump out of line, because in the end, you want a nice flat face here that bees can't get out. So there's a nice little tip for putting that last flow frame back in. Cap goes in the top. I noticed it was out because we were showing you how that frame was working. Now I'm actually going to put the gabled roof back on, because using the super lifter you can just leave your roof on. So we want to show you how you can do that. It just takes one more step out, makes it super easy and quick to do your brood inspections. If you've got a super lifter, let us know what you think. We're getting very positive reviews on that, overwhelmingly positive actually, where we've taken away what's a big pain point for people, and that's lifting heavy boxes to do their brood inspections. So that's on top there. I'm not even going to bother doing up the wing screws, but you can if you want to. Now, important thing, if you have these latches on the side, which is holding these two together, then what we want to do is undo them if we're planning to look between these two boxes. The super lifter is incredibly powerful. It will tear those latches right out of the wood if you don't undo them. So there we go. Now, quick demo of the lifter. I'm just having a look. This is set up for opening towards the front. Depending on what's going on, you can open that way or you can open this way, which makes it very versatile depending on whether you've got a wall here or a wall there or whatever it is. We tried to make it as versatile as possible and just put simple central load point screws in. That's the only modification you need to make to your hives to get them super lifter ready. Then one device to connect onto your hive. And here's the lifter here. If you haven't seen this before, we worked for a long time to make a very easy way. Fits in a nice backpack. In here is your lifter. Looks like this. You just simply grab it by the handles here like that, and as you pick it up with your hands, spread your hands apart, roll your wrists in, and it's ready to go. It sets itself up for you like a little transformer. We try to take the work out of it and make it very quick and very easy. Second thing is the top brackets go up onto the load point screws there. Now I'm actually opening between here and here, whereas I want to be up one. So let's jump onto this load point screw here. And again, step 2 is there. Step 3 is there actually. Step 4, it's written on here. We go up like this. Now at this point, you are effortlessly opening the hive, which used to be a real pain, chiseling, lifting in this awkward way. So see that? It's already done the separation for you. All I need to do is roll this leg around. Got a telescoping leg here, and we're putting that right down to the ground, making sure it's pressed all the way in. And all we need to do is then roll it over like that, and we're beekeeping. So it's so much easier, so much quicker than it was before. Let us know what you think. Now, to do our brood inspection, this hive, actually I saw the note on the top, said it was queenless. So we're going to have a look today, see if we've got any queen cells in the hive here. And we've got our smoker, so let's use it to clear away a few bees like this. And that's a handy little shelf sometimes up there as well. So we're going to take out a first frame. The first one's always the hardest, but we're just going apart like this. Now last week we had a very busy hive we were in, so if you want to see what it looks like when you have a big population of bees, chime in, have a look at that video last week. And it's quite a different experience this week because the bees are very calm and there's less of them. Here we go, pulling out the frame, and we get to look in at what's going on in this hive. Straight away I'm not seeing any brood, showing yes, they are queenless. But let's have a look down the cells. Now sometimes you need to really hold it up in the sunlight to see what's going on, and shaking the bees off is a good idea. I'm going to have a quick look for the queen first. Can't see a queen there. I'm not expecting to because I've already got that note on the hive saying that it was queenless. We'll shake diagonally across the hive like this, and that gives us a good look at what's going on down the cells, because I'm looking for bee eggs, which might mean a mated queen starting to lay. Look at all these colours, isn't that beautiful? That's bee bread, where the bees have flown out to the flowers, collected pollen. As they've gotten close to the flower, the pollen grains have leapt off the flower onto their hairy body. Even their eyes are covered in hairs. They've scraped all the pollen grains back to their pollen baskets on their hind legs. Come back to the hive, push those pollen balls into the cells. They've added their enzymes, their special sauce, topped it with honey and let it ferment into a nice sourdough bee bread, which is easier to digest. Now if I tip it like that, you might get a better view. Give us a thumbs up if you can see the beautiful colours of pollen.
So this is a good question. How does the queen eat or feed?
So the queen actually gets fed by the worker bees. She does not feed herself. And the hive all works together. A queen cannot exist without the other bees. So we're looking down the cells, no sign of eggs there. Let's have a look at the next frame, see if we can find either a queen cell that's had a queen emerge, or a queen cell with a queen in it, or a queen cup with a larvae in it. Oh, we have some brood here. Now that's very interesting. I suspect that Pete put this into the hive. There we go. Eggs. So this was a frame put in for the bees to start raising their own queen from. So when you have a queenless hive, one thing you can do, take a frame from another hive. If you have one, it's got eggs down the cells, they may raise a queen, because they can feed it royal jelly for its entire larval stage, and that means it will turn into a queen instead of a worker. As soon as the young worker bee larvae are fed plant proteins, they will turn into a worker bee through epigenetics. It's pretty cool. All right, now I can't see any signs of a queen cell though. It's interesting. I want to be a little bit careful here now, because if you've got a queen cup with a young queen larvae in it, then, there we go, you could dislodge her with a big shake. So it's going to be hard to see, but what I'm going to try and do is get a look down the cell. That is a dry queen cup, so unfortunately no queen there. Interesting. So we may not have won with this requeening, but let's not give up yet. They may have already been started on another frame somewhere, raising a new queen. So let's keep going. Any questions, chime in.
Yeah, Cedar, just on that frame that you pulled out before, people often think that it's damaging the brood nest. Just need to explain again the difference between where the flow frames are and the brood box, which is where you are now.
So the idea is the queen's down here. We like to do just wax frames, perfectly natural, where we just provide their wood and the bees draw it. Now we don't need the wire foundation that I used to so tediously do at night times, to put the wire in and the foundation sheets, which you've got to go and buy and all of that. I just let the bees draw it, and that's my favourite method. Works really nicely, and all they need is a little, like a long paddle pop stick at the top called the comb guide. Put that in the top slot, and the bees draw their own comb. So wood and wax, the way bees have always done it here. Then up the top you've got our flow frame invention. Now of course you don't want the queen laying up there, so you either use a queen excluder like this, which is sized at 4.3 millimeters. The queen cannot get through that. Now that will keep her out of laying here. Having said earlier, you can experiment with no excluder if you want to. Some queens will lay in flow frames and some won't. You'll need to find that out for yourself. And if you create a honey barrier like this, where you've got plenty of room down here, it's very unlikely she'll lay up in the top box anyway. So queen excluder or a honey barrier is a good idea to make sure you don't get the queen laying in your flow frames, and that way you've only got honey up here to harvest, and you're not risking damaging brood, which they might be raising down the cells. Hope that explained it. Chime in with your questions.
Cedar, David's wondering, how long after I get my bees should I put my Flow Super on?
So great question. What we like to do, and it's a good rule of thumb, is wait till they are using all of the frames and they've drawn out all their wax. So typically when you're starting out, there'll be a bunch of empty wooden frames here, or you might be using foundation, but the bees aren't using those frames yet. Now wait till they are using all the frames before putting on your super. Also, some local knowledge, pay attention to the time of year. You want to be putting on your super when you have a good honey season ahead. And that way you're not just putting on a super to make extra space for them, which might be hard if there's still really cold nights. There's no point in putting it on early. Wait till they need it when they're fully using the box below. Okay. Let's have a look at another frame, see what's going on while you think of your questions. We've got time to chime in with a bunch more questions before we go. Now this is an interesting frame because you've got a real variation of sizes across the frame with what we call drone size here, which they also use that size for storing honey when they want to be more efficient about storing honey. So if you let bees build comb under the roof, it'll usually be this larger size comb, not the smaller size brood size. When they're using it for honey or for brood, they'll use the smaller size. So it's a multi-purpose at 5.3 millimeters, around 6, or just below, it's for honey storage. A little bit higher than 6 is your drone size cells, which you're seeing around here, where the bees might like to use them for raising drones. There's one there. Drones are a fun one to pick up. They got no stinger. So you've noticed their eyes touching together in the middle. And it gives a thumbs up if you can see that. It's very different to the worker bee's eyes. So when you're getting started, a great way to tell drones from workers is look at their eyes. Big eyes that touch together in the middle. If we go around this way, you might get a closer look at that. And that way you can help identify drones as you get started. Also, the shape is a big teddy bear shaped bee instead of the more elegant looking worker bee or queen. Okay, queenless hive. We're going to have to keep an eye on this and make sure that we get a laying queen, or we're going to have to rectify the situation by introducing a queen or a frame with eggs in it for the bees to raise a new queen themselves.
Right, I might just tune in. There's a couple of people asking some questions about, yes, do we sell beekeeping suits? We sure do, on our honeyflow.com website. And also, do the hives come with queen excluders? Yep, they do. So that's all good there. But this is a bit of a full-on one from someone in Bondi Beach saying that they had a whole lot of bees and they've all died around Sydney, and wondering would you have any idea why that may have happened?
Okay, most likely Varroa, which we're in what's called the build-up phase at the moment. Not necessarily, but most likely around Sydney area got hit first with Varroa, and it's spreading out across Australia. It's spreading out from New South Wales to adjoining states now. This area got it early in the year. It is something that really does need us to up our beekeeping skills, making sure we're managing Varroa. Have a look at our page on how to manage Varroa. We've got some great decision tools for you there and some easy treatments you can apply in order to limit those mites weakening your hive. Now, often what can happen is the Varroa will weaken a hive, or perhaps your hive has gone and robbed out a wild hive that's died out and picked up all of the remaining mites. And that's called a mite bomb. We're in the build-up phase. It's going to be more intense for us to manage those mites for the next year or so until the unmanaged colonies have died out. Then we should be like every other country where, often in Europe, for instance, they're treating a couple of times a year with it, and that way you limit those Varroa taking over your hive. Each climate's different as well. We don't have the brood break that cold climates have, so it might be 3 or 4 times a year you'll just be managing those mites in your hive. But we look forward to the time where things settle down, but at a guess in that Sydney region that got hit quite early with the Varroa. And stay tuned over the coming weeks. We will be, we've been learning a lot, and we will be sharing what we've learnt in terms of easy treatments to manage those mites. So it will get easier now going forward in your area, so better luck next time when you install your colony, and have a look at our how-tos as well. and also got a great beekeeping training course at thebeekeeper.org for you. Let us know how you go.
Right.
Okay, not much going on that frame. Pretty empty, bit of pollen, bit of nectar. Good to see a bit of nectar shining there. Give us a thumbs up if you can see the glinting nectar. So that's them. They are finding some flowers around with some nectar, doing some storage, which is great. We know we don't have to feed the bees when they do have nectar coming in. It's very rare for us to feed bees. In fact, we don't at all. Other parts of the world where you've got long, cold winters, often people are feeding bees to increase their stores prior to a winter, or to help stimulate the bees to build up prior to a spring flow. And when I say spring flow, that's a nectar flow where flowers are producing a lot of nectar. Okay, still no sign of bee eggs down the cells, and we have not found a queen cell either. So this hive is in trouble if we don't do anything about it.
Oh. So what's a good water source to use for your bees?
So a water source for bees. Now bees do need to collect water, and around here there's always water around. We don't really have to make a water feeding station, but in extremely dry, arid areas you will need to make a water station for your bees. And I've heard in WA, out on those desert flowering flows, they will actually, the commercial beekeepers will bring water with them to set up a water feeding station for their bees. Easy one for you to do is some pebbles in a dish, like the tray under plant pots. Put some pebbles in there, put it under a dripping tap. The bees will happily land on those pebbles and suck between the stones. That way they don't drown in your water feeding station. If you want to take it a step further, put a pinch of salt in. The bees will love that. They like minerals too. Okay. Now, we may as well just keep going as we answer a couple more questions. Then we'll go back and have a look at our honey harvest. And if you've got answers to other people's questions, fantastic to see you chiming in and helping answer those. It's just amazing to have a community of beekeepers all around the world. It's such a surprise to see that spring up around our invention, and all of the discussions and all the things we've learnt from all of you out there. It's just a very neat thing to be sharing and learning on a global scale. Let us know in your country what you do for Varroa as well. We're all ears here down under, where it's new to us in this country. Okay, we've got another frame that's been added with brood, so we could have a queen cell on here, and it's been marked on top. So hopefully the bees will turn one of these cells into a queen cell. Again, I want to be careful not to shake a newly being raised queen, if you like, because that might lead to her being dislodged. So it's hard to get a good view, so this is where your bee brush might come in handy. You don't have to shake your bees if you've got the brush. Now, I don't like the brush as much as being shaken, according to me anyway. So we're putting the corner down on top of one of the other frames. So when we're brushing them in. Notice how they get a bit agitated with being brushed, but it'll give us a really good view of what's going on the frame. And there we have it. What we wanted to find was those queen cells. Look at that. Beautiful. So we know we have not one queen being raised, but two. So check that out. Very different to the worker brood, very different to the drone brood. We have the queen cells, and we call them queen cells when they cap like that, because underneath is a larvae in it that's now in its pupae phase, growing its legs and wings and getting supersized into a queen, and with everything it needs to go about laying a couple of thousand eggs a day for up to 6 years. So it's amazing. Any one of these bees could have been a queen if it was fed royal jelly only, which is like mother's milk that the bees actually secrete. So got another one over here. Look at that. So we've got 1, 2, 3 that they're raising, and another cup there. What's going on with that one? So the bees are clever. They are going, let's just not risk it. Let's raise multiple queens. And that cup has a young larvae in it. So another one in an earlier stage there. First queen to come out will make a piping noise, and the other queens will come and will pipe back. She'll find them, she'll sting them through the cell before they even emerge and become the reigning queen. And that's generally how they work it out. Fantastic. We have queen cells, so this hive will have new genetics soon, forged by those queens' genetics with whatever drones they mate with. And she'll be mating in the first week of her life with perhaps 30 or so male bees from around the area. She'll return back to the hive with enough sperm to have 6 years of fertilized eggs for creating the worker bees to keep the colony going. It's such a cool and fascinating world inside the beehive. All right, we're going to start putting the frame back together while we enter hive back together. Now we've seen what we needed to see, and then we'll answer a few questions as well while we pack up.
Great seeds. Sharon's just wondering, she was looking forward to the Flow Hive and put the super on about 3 weeks ago, put some wax on the frames, and I guess Sharon's question is, why aren't they putting the honey in the flow frames? What's going on? Or any tips or tricks to encourage them? But it's only been 3 weeks.
Okay, so patience is a good thing in beekeeping of any kind, but if you are getting a bit impatient, and we never do anything to the flow frames, we put it on and we wait till the bees need that extra room. When there's lots of bees in the window when you open it and there's a good nectar flow, they will use this area because they need to, and they'll start waxing it all up and away they go. Now sometimes you can find that adding a bit of wax to the frames will increase the bees' activity, so I'll give you a little show and tell of how to do that. We have a frame here, and this is a fun thing you can do if you want to see a bit of activity sooner. So let's just have a look now. There is a bit of wax built up here that we could use to put onto the frames in a very easy way. I'm just going to add a bit to my smoker. There we go. Get that going again, because smoke's a great tool for clearing bees out of the way, and I don't want to scrape up any bees while I'm scraping up some of the wax. So this wax is pretty old and brown, a lot of propolis content, but it doesn't matter, it'll still be an interesting experiment and thing for the bees. Now, all we're going to do is scrape off a bunch of that. Grab your flow frame from the edge here, because that'll be exciting for you to watch through the window. And all you'll do is mash it into the flow frame surface. Now, you won't damage your flow frame. Support it though as you push on it, so that the frame doesn't come apart. And just big blobs around like that, the bees will quickly go, hey, that's out of place. We like this comb structure, but we don't like that. And they'll start chewing it away with their mandibles, reshaping it, using it to coat the surrounding area, join all the little gaps we've left in the cell lines for the bees' knees, and you'll get to enjoy watching them make a start on the flow frames through the side window. Now, you still won't get any honey stores until the bees have a lot of flowers to go and get nectar from, and there's a lot of bees in your hive, and you can see a lot of bees in the window. When all of that coincides, it can happen very quickly, but until then, you might be waiting impatiently. Okay, so let's keep putting the hive back together. Now, I was careful then not to damage those queen cells because they are important to keep this hive going. They're raising the queen cells from the bee eggs, and that will be the new queen for the hive. So I was careful when I moved this frame across not to go downways like that and smash off the queen cells. Okay, a few frames to go back in. Now when I put frames back in, I'm always careful not to have areas that are bulging out, squashing into another section of comb that's bulging out. Not much going on here in terms of frame bulges because they've drawn nice and straight, and we don't have any capped honey, which is often the bit that's drawn out and bulging out further, if you like. So no problem there, but always check if you're unsure whether your frames are back in the same order. Just make sure there is enough room for the bees to work between comb surfaces. Otherwise the hive beetles will go, yippee, you can't chase me here and I'm going to lay thousands of eggs. So if you've got small hive beetle in your area, make sure you're not squashing comb against comb. Make sure there's always a gap between this surface and another surface for the bees to get in there and service that area. Last frame's always a bit harder to put in because you're going downways. We have sized our boxes with a little bit extra room though, which you will really appreciate. If you're a conventional beekeeper, you go, why have they made so much space in the hive? But 10 frame layings are typically too tight, and in fact beekeepers can sometimes only run 9 frames in it just because they're too tight. So we've gone and added a bit of extra space, which you'll appreciate later when things get nice and properlised and waxy like this. Down they go. Okay, we've got our brood nest back together. We know there's a queen cell. In fact, there's more than one queen cell in there. So soon we should have a virgin queen emerging and going on her mating flight. So we can come back to this one next week and see if we have a virgin queen. Very cool.
Hey Peter, Clinton, sorry to interrupt, but Clinton was just worrying, how do you know the queen's not in the bottom box?
Could be. So there could already be a virgin queen emerged. So it's one of the reasons why I like to run a single brood box, is it makes it exceedingly simple. You only got one box to go through. Whereas if you've got 2 boxes, it gets a bit trickier to find that queen. But I'm pretty sure she would be up here because we already had a look a few days back. And down here, actually my dad swapped it. This hive was here and it was mainly honey. This box was there, it was mainly honey. And he decided for whatever reason he wanted to swap it around and see what the bees would do. So you've got the honey down there and the brood nest here, the other way around to what they normally do. And his little test was to see whether they'll move the honey from down here right up to the flow frames if we put it down the bottom. It's always fun to test and measure and learn things as you go. We're still learning a lot, and it's great to see everyone out there learning so much from each other. So thanks to all of you chiming in, helping answer questions. Now, this hive, unlike last week, isn't all, there's bees, it's not all spilling out everywhere. So we can easily just close this up now, just by simply rolling our super lifter. Now this area here is where we've got to be careful of. We don't want to squash bees between here and here. That's the only spot we need to watch when we are landing this box back on. Now, normally landing a box, you just can't do anything about it. You're just dropping it, right, on all of your bees, squashing what you squash, and that's all you can do. With our super lifter, we've designed it so you can just do a very gentle close. And some people are saying that is their favorite bit about the super lifter, is that control you get. So see these bees here, you can smoke or brush them out of the way, and you'll notice that the only spot it's landing is right there. Now you've got this lovely ability to brush and smoke the bees away as you gently close the hive. So you can do that just by collapsing this pole leg, and I can see a bee here. So I'm going to brush that away, make sure there's none there as I close the hive down. And then you've got a very gentle way and a controlled way to put your hive back together. This rolls around like this, super simple and quick, and it's ready to go on the next hive for your next brood inspection. So we wanted to design something you could use on multiple hives. We had a lot of designs that had the technology built into each hive, but with like filing cabinet style rolling drawers and things. But in the end we decided, let's just make a tool that you can use on existing hives with minimal modification. The only thing we need to do is add these load point screws, which come with your kit, and away you go. You can use that on all of your hives to make it a lot easier. We've also got these handles. If you're doing a double box lift, then they're really handy. We are pushing it for time today, so we'll show you the double box lift. And next week, go and have a look at our honey harvest. See if we got any honey today. The bees are a bit hungry at the moment. We just wanted to show you the Flow Hive, the inner workings of it, answering the question that is still going on more than a decade later after we've launched into the world. We still get people saying this can't be true, this is not possible. But here we are, we've got the honey flowing right out of the hive and into the jar. While we've been busy doing our beekeeping, the honey has harvested itself. So we haven't got a full jar today. The bees are a bit hungry, and it depends on whether they've capped it and drawn it out further. You'll often see this jar full to the top. And all you need to do now is come along and take your key like this, turn it back to a 90, take it out, you're putting it in the top slot, all the way to the back, turning it to a 90. A tip is leave it there for a minute or two to make sure all your parts push back into the cell form position for your hive, to make sure you have good cell shape. Otherwise, if you just do a little quick close and move on, you might find parts are out of line. They'll put excess wax here, which will make blobs of wax in your flow path later, which might cause spills inside the hive and so on. So a little tip, leave that as you are packing up your hive. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all of your great questions. Chime in next week, let us know what you'd like us to cover. We'll be back with another show and tell, and let us know whether you think the Flow Hive is fake.